All right, let's dive into something that's totally transforming the workplace as we know it. We're talking about the performance review revolution.
You know that feeling, right? That knot in your stomach when you walk into an annual review. I think we've all been there. It's this moment where your entire year's worth of work, all the wins, the struggles, everything, gets boiled down into one single super high-stakes conversation. It's a huge source of anxiety for a reason.
For decades, that high-pressure, once-a-year meeting was just how things were done. It was the norm. But thankfully, the ground has been shifting in a really big way, and we're finally seeing a major move away from this old, kind of broken model.
And this quote from Kevin R. Murphy just absolutely nails the core problem. Think about it. We expect our managers to be coaches now, to be leaders who help us get better. But the old annual review forced them to put on a judge's robe. That fundamental conflict is exactly why the whole system started to crumble.
So let's really put this traditional model under the microscope. Why exactly did it get so out of sync with the way we actually work today? Well, the reasons are clearer than you might think.
The first, and maybe the biggest problem, is this massive clash between judgment and growth. The old annual review was all about looking backward, putting your past on trial. And what happens when people feel judged? They get defensive. It creates anxiety, not a safe space to learn and improve. I mean, how can you be open to feedback when you feel like you're on the defensive?
And then there's the problem of just trying to cram way too much into one single meeting. Microsoft famously called the annual review a Swiss Army knife, and that analogy is perfect. It was trying to be a tool for everything. Assessing the past, planning for the future, deciding your bonus, talking about promotions, and, when one tool tries to do everything, it usually ends up doing nothing well.
And finally, there's just the sheer, relentless speed of modern work. I mean, just think about it. Setting goals in January that are supposed to be relevant all the way through December, that's almost impossible today. Projects change, priorities shift, teams pivot on a dime. A once-a-year conversation is just way too slow to keep up.
So, if the old way is broken, what's the alternative? It's not just a small tweak, it's a whole new philosophy. We're moving away from that single dreaded event and embracing this new idea of continuous growth and feedback.
And this slide right here, this is the real aha moment. On the left, you've got the old way, that one big HR-driven event focused on the past, ending with a label and a pay decision. But look at the right. The modern approach is a continuous cycle, owned by you and your manager, and it's all focused on the future. The outcome isn't some label, it's learning and taking action. It's a total game changer.
Now, before we dive into the new playbook, we have to talk about one of the most infamous and controversial tools of the old system: forced ranking. You might know it by its other names, stack ranking, or even more brutally, rank and yank.
This is what it looked like in practice. The Vitality Curve, made famous at General Electric, forced managers to categorize their teams into a rigid bell curve: the top 20% of talent, the vital middle 70%, and then the bottom 10%, who were often let go. So why did this system fail so spectacularly? Because it turned work into a zero-sum game. It pitted employees against each other, totally destroying any chance of collaboration. And imagine being a manager of a fantastic team. You were forced to give good, hardworking people bad ratings just to meet a corporate quota. It shattered trust, killed morale, and ultimately, even the companies that pioneered it, like GE, had to walk away.
So, with all these obvious problems, you'd think companies are ditching performance ratings altogether, right? Well, this next number might surprise you. 12%. What do you think that represents?
That's the tiny percentage of companies that have completely gotten rid of performance ratings. So here's the crucial point. The revolution isn't just about abolishing ratings, it's about what you replace them with. This data shows that the companies that successfully ditch ratings are the ones who are also all in on continuous feedback and employee development. Just taking away the ratings without adding something better, that simply doesn't work. So let's see what this looks like in the real world. Let's open up the new playbook and see how some of the world's top companies have completely evolved their approach. Take Microsoft. We mentioned their Swiss Army knife problem. Their solution was elegant. They decoupled the conversations. They created separate, dedicated discussions for development and for rewards. This freed up the performance conversation to be entirely about impact, learning, and growth, without the pressure of a pay decision hanging over it.
Adobe was a true pioneer here. They didn't just tweak the annual review, they got rid of it completely. They replaced it with a system called check-ins. These are ongoing conversations structured around three simple pillars: setting clear expectations, giving and getting real-time feedback,
and focusing on long-term growth.
And Deloitte's solution is so powerful because it's so simple. They shifted to frequent, forward-looking check-ins with one simple rule. Every manager checks in with every team member every single week. This completely transforms the manager's role from an annual judge into a real-time coach, focused on one thing: what are you going to do next week to succeed?
This quote from IBM really summarizes the human element driving this entire revolution. Performance is an ongoing activity. People need to know where they stand now, not 6 months from now. The demand for instant, relevant feedback is what makes the annual cycle obsolete.
So what are the big lessons we can pull from all this? Let's distill this down into some key takeaways for the modern workplace.
The first big takeaway is this: it's no longer just about what you achieve, it's about how you achieve it. Hitting your numbers is still important, of course, but are you learning? Are you collaborating? Are you helping your colleagues succeed? These behaviors are now seen as absolutely critical for long-term sustainable success.
But, and this is important, we have to be realistic. There's no magic bullet. Each of these new approaches comes with its own trade-offs. Continuous feedback is amazing, but it can be incredibly time-intensive for managers. Decoupling pay from performance talks makes for safer conversations, but it can create confusion about how pay is actually decided. And removing ratings is great for a growth mindset, but it can also make performance feel more subjective. The key is finding the right balance for your team.
And that leaves us with one final, crucial question to think about. The revolution has shifted us from a single event to a continuous conversation, but that raises the bar. It's no longer enough to just have the conversation. The real challenge now is making sure that conversation is consistently meaningful, impactful, and truly drives growth. And that, well, that's the next frontier of this revolution.